Words to really describe it. To the Mistress of Ceremonies, Miss Wendy Corona, who is my new best friend. Jamaica's Minister of State and National Security, the Honorable Pernell Charles Jr. Wasn't his speech amazing?
Amazing, amazing.
The Honorable Jamaica Minister of Transportation, Mr. Mike Henry, whose work I know well. He's one of the few elected officials who actually ministers of transportation, who actually knows the industry in a very technical way. I've heard many of his speeches over the last many years. Mayor Sandy Springs, who had to leave us, Mr. Rusty Ball. The outstanding awardees of the STEAM program this year, I had a chance to speak to two of them. I was extremely impressed. Also, I'd like to recognize Dr. Edward Elaine, who is the outgoing Consul General for Barbados here in Atlanta, and the incoming Consul General, Mr. David Cutting, and the Honorable Consul General of Jamaica, of course, Joel Scott. It's good to see you. As well as the Ambassador to the U.S. from St. Kitts and Nevis, Dr. Thelma Philip Brown, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure for me to be here. I believe the program was supposed to end at 3, and we're all supposed to clear out by 3:30. It is 3:25. So I don't want them to throw us out of here because I'm from Antigua and I know how Caribbean people operate in this way. As Aline kind of said, I run $1 billion a year operation, but you all gave me a really tough job this afternoon because I think I'm the last speaker of about 6 or 7. And to follow the Honorable Minister, I gotta tell you, that's a tough job. In fact, it kind of feels like, reminds me of Liz Taylor's 8th husband on the night of the honeymoon. You know what you're supposed to do, but how do you make it different? But it is Sunday, so I know at least 2 people in the audience are saying that's inappropriate to have one. That's okay, I heard you. Seriously, they told me that my job was to talk about the role of mentors for the children who are here. And, you know, it's not a difficult subject to talk about, but I think the best way to talk about it is just to talk about my experience. I'm the last of 12 kids. I had 3 brothers, 8 sisters, and then me. And I grew up in a tiny village in Antigua, called English Harbor. And back in those days, the British knew how to keep us stupid. Because back in those days in Antigua, you had to pay tuition to go to the public high school. And so, imagine my parents decided that their greatest goal in life was to make sure all of their kids graduate from high school. Now, to some of you, that don't sound like a big thing. But when you never had anybody, most of the people in the village never graduated from high school because they didn't have the tuition. And by the way, that is still very prevalent today. Only 8 years ago, I was in Nairobi, Kenya, and it was a Tuesday. I saw a bunch of kids on the streets. Asked what was going on. They said they had a new government, and one of their policies was to have elementary school education free for the first time in Nairobi. And that was the second day that the kids went to school. 2 million kids showed up, and they didn't have anywhere to put them. So they just walk in the streets. Antigua was much different from then. And so my parents, who were growing cotton at the time, saved up as much money as they can. I was telling Wendy Now, my parents always had a thing. Every disappointment is a blessing. They always taught their kids that. And so, through a disappointment, when they had the 5th and 6th children and they could not send them to high school, one of my brothers decided that he was going to help my father drive a cab, because we had just transitioned Antigua's economy from agriculture to tourism. And to make a long story short, one of the tourists probably thought he shouldn't be driving that young, told them the story. And because of that encounter, he ended up in Portland, Oregon, because the tourists just happened to be the people who created the asphalt roof, shingles that you put on your roof. And the rest is history. He became the first black to head a top department for the Oregon state government. And he got all of us back to the United States. Every disappointment is a blessing. You see, God is good all the time. God is good. And so the reason I got here was because, of course, if you're a family of 12 in my little village, not only were you in the church, you were the church. And so you all know how we used to raise money in those little villages. You remember the little card when you fold out with the 25-cent stocks? Yes. So every Sunday, I make my rounds, and I always hit up the Nicholsons from Ireland. And so one day, Miss Nicholson, I might have been 8 or 9, and she asked me, what I planned to do with my life, as if I really understood it at that time. And I said, I really don't know. And she said, next time when you come back, I have something for you. When I went back, she gave me this big plastic bag of stamps and a stamp book. Now, the stamp needed something to glue them in, so I had to use turkey berry. Remember what turkey berry is? Just stick them in the book. I still have that stamp book today, but what a world it opened me to. I got stamps from Grenada, Jamaica, Malawi, Israel, all over the world. And that was my first big interest in international. I wanted to go to all those places. And so, the first job I sought out, I had to work for Liat. Everybody know that, but leave Ireland anytime? Yes. But I didn't really understood that Liat only went to the Caribbean. I wanted to see the world. So I only stayed with Liat for 3 months. Because I wanted to work for BWIA. By the way, that stands for Better Walking Favor. Or But Will It Arrive. And once I started seeing those places, shortly after, we migrated to the United States. And so, of course, now I graduated from high school. My parents said, you're on your own. If you want to do this college thing, you're on your own. So, of course, that's nothing for us. I remember when I got off the bus, when I got to Portland, I saw this McDonald's, I went into the place, and the man telling me, I showed him my BWI resume. He says, but you won't stay here very long because look at this resume. What he didn't realize is that the McDonald's, my minimum wage was 3 times what he was paying me. I was making real progress. And so, I saw this ad while I'm waiting to go to college, and it said, roving tellers needed. Now I had a feeling roving meant you went from one bank to the next. I just didn't realize that they didn't tell you until the day before. Which is okay if you have a car. But if you have to ride public transportation and you don't know the city, it's not so good. So one night, it's the precursor to Walmart. It's called Fred Meyer in the Pacific Northwest. They had a variety store with pharmacy, supermarket, television, every this kind of stuff. And they just started a new bank, and they were opening a new branch like every week to 2 weeks. And so the roving tellers were responsible for opening the new branches. Now that would have been okay, except that for every $300 you deposit, you get 2 New York State free. And all the old people in the city withdrawing money from all their banks to deposit to get 2 free steak that day. And so they had one computer in the bank, and so I balanced real quick, And I'm running out of the building, and this tall, statuesque, blonde lady, I have sisters, so I know real jewelry when I see it. She was wearing real jewelry. And she stops me and she says, "Young man, where are you going?" Now, I'd only been in the US for a few months, but I already figure out that if a white person stops a black man when you're running away from a bank, it can't be good, she picture. So I just, what my son says, I dissed her, I just took off. So, about a month later, we're opening up a new branch, and there's this lady again. So I spotted her, and I asked the branch manager, "Who's that lady?" And I said, "Oh, she's the regional assistant vice president in charge of the whole city for the bank." And I thought, Lord, this is going to be a short banking career. And so I balanced, and I'm rushing out the building again, and she stopped me again. "Young man, you couldn't have balanced." I said, "Ma'am, it's not because I'm really that smart, you know. I'm really just desperate because I have to catch the bus." And this is a suburb of Portland called Gresham. All you see are white folks, and all the men driving pickup trucks with gun racks in the back. Really, I'm serious. I didn't want darkness to fall. I had to get over there. Well, I said that, and I didn't wait for her comment. I took off. It must have been a month later. She walks into another branch, and there I am. And for some reason, she thought, like you, it was funny. And that woman took a liking to me. All I can tell you was 8 years later, when she retired, she named me to her position. For the kids in the room, I'm telling you, I have a little bit of more story to tell. But there are really 4 things that our parents taught us. And I don't know all the fancy psychiatrists and psychologists and all the new stuff they're teaching you. There are really only 4 things, if you do them right, you're going to succeed. First is education. Education is the great equalizer. Let me tell you, if you run an operation with $1 billion a year, you better know how to count. You know, Miss Quinn, stand up, where are you? One of the recipients. She says to me, "Mr. Southwell," she was talking to me and Miss Corona, and she says, "Do you have any opportunities for industrial engineering?" Of course, I told her yes, but you could have told her too. Have you been to the airport? No, industrial engineering is an engineering science that tries to improve processes. How many of you have been to the airport this week waiting for the TSA checkpoint area? Yeah. Miss Queen, we have plenty of work here. Education is the great equalizer, and if my parents hadn't made that commitment and me to myself to learn as much as I can, I simply would not have been here. The second thing is hard work. I have to tell you, my folks can tell you, I am up before everybody else, and I'm the last person in the office, and I've been doing that since I was 20 years old, because everybody is smarter than you. And the way to equalize that is to work harder than they do. I figured that out. The other thing is just something I call honesty. And I have to tell you, Irene said it. Most of us were taught well, if not all of us, to be honest and have integrity. But one of the hardest things I found as an adult is the courage to exercise that honesty and integrity. Some of you have jobs where people ask you to do things that are not right, but you're afraid to lose your job because you have bills to pay, you have kids to send to school. Especially those of you in public sector, you know what I'm talking about. I've worked all over this country in public sector. But the fact of the matter is you don't have an option. Because once you lose that integrity, everybody knows you're a crook. And in the internet and all of that, the whole world is going to know, and you won't be able to get another job. So education, hard work, and integrity, regardless of your position, be prepared to lose it to be able to exercise in it. And last, just respect people. Alvin said it. My parents taught me a very easy rule. Treat people the way you would like to be treated. I didn't even know it came from the Bible. They have it in the Jewish Testament and all of that too. It's a common thing. Always treat people the way you'd like to be treated, and you always do the right thing to other people. Just two last quick things in terms of how I got here. So I had a stupid idea. Since I was successful as a banker, my wife and I, my wife is from Antigua, I was telling Miss Corona, let me tell you, if you find a good woman, catch you when she's young. Before she find out that she really doing the wrong thing. By the time my wife of 38 years understood who she was marrying, you know. So we had always said we were going to start this import-export business even before I left Antigua. And while I was doing this business plan, I was doing a degree in Mississippi, New York. I was doing this business plan. Just come to Atlanta to start this import-export business. Didn't want to do it in New York and Miami, they're saturated. Then I realized, through some advice from some folks, that Atlanta didn't have any flights to the Caribbean. Back in 1989, there was not one flight from Atlanta to anywhere in Latin America and the Caribbean. All the flights were to Europe. And so I decided, well, first of all, the import-export business was to ship frozen goods, primarily chicken, to Antigua for distribution in the Leeward Islands. Now, you all know, if you're going to ship frozen chicken, there's no such thing as a 3-day-old frozen chicken. You have to have a plane to get it there. And when I found out Atlanta didn't have any flights, I got a stupid idea. My wife was right to start an airline instead. So I had it registered in Delaware. Of course, you know what you call, right? Calypso Airlines. From Antigua, right? So I figure I would get Sparrow to promote it and all that stuff. But walking all over Atlanta, wear all 3 pairs of shoes because nobody wanted to give this funny talking guy $10 million to start my airline. Well, my wife was right. But in the process, I met a lady by the name of Angela Gittins. Her ancestors are from Barbados. And it's a long story in how I got to meet her, because they told me that to spend their money at the airport, I had to be an intern. I said, I don't have time. I'm trying to market an airline. I can't. They said, no, you have to work here if you're going to spend our money to help build your business case. So I finally did a deal with the marketing manager. He says, okay, I'll let you come on. You have to work, even part-time, so I'll have an internship I'll give you. As long as if the airline ever flies to St. Kitts, when I retire, I want to be the station manager. So we shook hands on it. Well, 2 years later, and probably 6 pair of shoes, I didn't get the money. But while I was an intern, I remember, I was a banking executive and all of that. I said, I don't have any time to do any real work. They said, well, okay, you can write the general manager's speeches. Because I may not do a lot of things well, but Lord Father Brown, this English teacher, taught us how to write English. And so I was writing her speeches for 2 years. And the reason my dream stopped was because Delta started operating to almost all the cities in the countries in Antigua, in the Caribbean, that I had planned in my business plan. You see, they were going to be my feeder airline. So there's this guy called Doug Blissett who would tell you where Delta is going to fly next. So I told him my entire business plan. You can ask Angela Gittins when you see her next time. She said, if you want to know where Delta is going to fly, ask Miguel. And they saw the opportunity, but that was good. But my dreams died then. So then I was planning to go back into banking since I had a little success there. You know, banking is a really nice racket, you know. People bring your money to you, you pay them 1%, and then you lend it to the same person for 8%. I got that down. For those of you winners in here, think about banking, man, it's a real racket. So I was getting ready to go back. And she says, you know, you seem like a really smart guy. You ever thought about getting into this business? If you're interested, I could mentor you. Now I run the world's busiest airport. I tell you, education is a great equalizer. You have to have your education, but if you want to rise to the top, you got to work harder than everybody else. You have to be honest, and you have to respect people and treat them the way you'd like to be treated. But at the end of the day, you can dot all your I's and do all those things. But if you're fortunate, as I have 3 times in my life, to meet somebody who says, but I will help you along the way, that is the best thing that could ever happen. That is God giving me an angel. Thank you very much.